water straight from the tap, or I can just take running water, put it in the fridge. Then probably after an hour or so, the temperature of this water would have changed. um, I can decide that I want to go and shower, and probably it's a cold day, and I can decide to change again the temperature of this water, and I can boil this water. As I'm boiling this water, then uh, some water in the pot can actually change into vapor because of the heat that because of the heat or the change in temperature to the water. So I want to illustrate, or I'm giving this information at this point in time to understand that a state of helplessness can be self-induced by us. We have the potential to place ourselves at a position where we are helpless. We cannot save ourselves. You find that sometimes we are helpless. Just to be in context, maybe because we are in a financial mess, finances seem not to add up, and that can be a form of helplessness. And sometimes it can be self-induced because we have not find better ways to manage our resources. So the brokenness that I am then in can be self-induced. We again can talk of uh, sometimes even addictions. They can leave us in a point of helplessness, but sometimes it can be self-induced. I have placed myself at a position where I then become helplessness. So at this point in time, before we go deep into our word, I want us to acknowledge or appreciate the idea that a helplessness can be self-induced. But sometimes there are also other forces which can lead us into places of helplessness without our own doing. For example, sometimes it can just rain snow, and there is no much of human act into into what have happened. But again, it has happened. So a state of helplessness again sometimes can exist to humanity without us playing any critical role. There's nothing that we have done, but we find ourselves just a victim of circumstances that are already existing. For example, we can mention sin. There is nothing that I have done or that you have done that has made us to be in this mess, but it is something that we have inherited. So a state of helplessness can be inherited when there is nothing that you have done. For example, your parents might have done something wrong that you partake, or your act of being in this world places you already at a position of vulnerability, even though there isn't much that you have done to address the position that you are in. So state of helplessness can be self-induced. State of helplessness can be something that we just experience because of maybe greater forces at play. So I think with this background, we can then find a state of helplessness that we get in the Bible, and probably a solution to address helplessness that we experience. Because I'm sure if you would want to be open with me, at some point in time in our lives, we experience helplessness. Sometimes it can be you graduate, you finish school, you're looking for a job, you just seem not to get a vacant, or you just seem not to get an offer. Somebody graduate a year after you, same degree, and they seem to get a better offer, and maybe they didn't they actually do not have better grades in comparison with what you have. That can be a state of helplessness that you can experience. Sometimes you have some life goals that you want to pursue, but finances seem not to push you to attain or achieve that which you want to achieve. That again can be a state of helplessness. So a state of helplessness can also emanate in different social social ideas that we have, we can tend to experience form of helplessness in those areas. So a state of helplessness is something that we, at any point in time in our lives, we can be able to, relate to. We can be able to experience, and it's something that we can talk about. If maybe I could allow each and everyone to share their ideas. We have moments in our lives where we have feel helplessness, and sometimes it is not amazing that we might have actually think of ending our own lives because we are in a dilemma. So a state of helplessness is something when we are living in a world that has sin, we are bound to face. Now if we go to our text, 2 Kings chapter 3 verse 9. Let me quickly go there, then I'll share. 2 Kings chapter 3 verse 9. We have three kings at play: the king of Israel, the king of Edom, and the king of Judah. And these three kings are going to, they've partnered so that they can be able to go and fight the Moabites. So if we are following what is happening, we have the king of Israel, who is uh, Jehoram. We have the king of Judah, who is Jehoshaphat. We have the king of Edom, who has not been mentioned. And these three kings, they have partnered and they're going to fight the king of Moabites. So if you are following closely to the context that I've shared, the king of Israel, the king of Edom, the king of Judah, all partnered, going to fight the nation of Moabites. So these three have already made an alliance to go and face the enemy. And let me also share this, that in this world that we live in, we also need to form alliance so that we can go and fight the enemies that we have. We are not better equipped when we are on our own. We need to come up with alliance that can help us. That's why the Bible in the book of Ecclesiastes, it mentions that two are better than one because they have a better reward on their labor. So one thing that is being suggested by this verse is we cannot fight the battles that we face in this world on our own. We need alliance. We need to partner with people so that we can be able to stand the enemies that we face. So when you follow closely, the Bible says they ask a question. When you read verse 8, then he said, which way shall we go up? Now, I love how the writer of the text suggest and bring verse 3 into context, because the Bible says, then he said, which way shall we go up? So the three kings, they are saying, all right, we need to make a move, but the move that we are going to make, it is an upward movement. That's why he says, which way shall we go up? And let me also speak this into context and say, in this world that we're living in, we know that we are destined for greatness when we choose not the way that is easy, but when we choose the way that goes up. You understand that whenever you're reading the Bible, whenever men decided to go down, things did not end well. We can talk of Jonah, who decided to go down to Joppa, and we know how it ended up being a mess. From down to Joppa, down in a boat, down in a lower deck where he slept, until he went down in the sea, swallowed up by a fish, all because he was going down. We can also talk of Samson, who went down, and we know for Samson, it ended up when he was now sleeping on the laps of Delilah, and it ended up with him losing his eyesight. We again can talk about the story of the Good Samaritan, of a man who decided to go down from Jerusalem to Jericho. So you find that when you are reading the Bible, whenever man went down, though it was easy, but there were repercussions to pay with the way of or with choosing the way that goes down. So whenever a man chooses a way that is easy, you can enjoy walking the path, but sometimes there are a price to pay with the choices that we might make. So it is good that whenever we want to make a decision, though it can be tough, we choose the way that goes up. For a way that can be easy usually leads to distraction. It is easy to do what everyone else is doing, but there is a price to pay. So the three kings says, we shall go up. And they says, all right, how shall we go up? Then they says, by the way of the wilderness of Edom. Now, when you are following closely, they are going up, choosing an upward way. That's number one. Number two, then they are choosing a way which is leading them into the wilderness. So they seem to be double trouble for the three kings, for they are going up, number one, and they are going by the way of the wilderness of Edom. Let me also say, in this world that we are living in, we also need to make bold decisions in which we are going up, and even if it means going into the wilderness, we are willing and ready to go into the wilderness. And when you read verse 9, the Bible says they went for 7 days without water. They went for 7 days without water. Now we see a difference that exists when the children of Israel marched around the tower, marched around the walls of Jericho 7 times. They got the walls of Jericho tumbling down. When these three kings marched around the wilderness for 7 days, at the end of 7 days, they do not have water, they are thirsty, and they're literally at a point of giving up. So we found that in this world that we are living in, there is no single formula for each and every one. Others can get at the seventh day walls of Jericho tumbling down, but others at the end of 7 days, they can find themselves at a state of helplessness. So I'm just saying, we might have all done the same program, but at the end of 7 days, someone walls of Jericho are tumbling down, but you can be at a state of helplessness. And the question is, when we find ourselves in a state of helplessness, what then do we desire, or what then do we ought to do to save ourselves from the predicament that they are in? You'll find that when they find themselves in a state of helplessness, the one of the kings wants to give up, because they're saying, all right, we are in this mess. This is actually um, uh, one of the king, Jehoram, the king of Israel, who actually says, okay, God has brought us here so that he can give up on us and we can be vulnerable, pray to our enemy. But Jehoshaphat, then the king of Judah, says, no, God did not bring us here so that we can be a mess. What then is our attitude in moment of helplessness? Are we quick to give up when hopelessness struck, or we are like Jehoshaphat, who is looking if there is a man of God to save them from their mess? And you find out that they eventually go to Elisha, and Elisha says, it is because I honor the presence of Jehoshaphat. Otherwise, I wouldn't have looked even at your face. So you find that the king of Israel is being served because of the presence of Jehoshaphat. So we need to come with alliance that can serve us in moments of crisis. Do we have friends who can serve us when we are in a mess? I could just pause and ask a question. When you're in a financial mess, do you have somebody who is able to bail you out? Do you have someone that you can rely on? You find out that the king of Israel was served based on the presence of Jehoshaphat. So again, I pose this question: do you have anyone who can save you in moment of crisis? But again, I've started by saying some helplessness that we can experience can be self-induced. We can place ourselves we can place ourselves in areas where we are helpless. The person that I can probably highlight, I see it's almost 3 minutes to 8. Let me quickly move and talk about Noah. Noah was given a mission by God, and the mission that he was given by God saved him from the helplessness that he was bound to have. You find that when Noah was given a mission to build an ark, it was the mission, the purpose that he had that saved him from his helplessness. When he was done building the ark, there was the flood. Eventually, they move out of the flood. When he no longer had a mission, the Bible says he went, planted some grapes, harvested, drank wine, and he became drunk. And the child and his son saw the father's nakedness because the father was drunk. So, to Noah, he reached a point of helplessness because he did not have any purpose, he did not have any goal. But when he had a purpose, he was able to have himself remain focused and glued on the mission that he had. But when he had achieved that which he desired to achieve, he reached a point of helplessness. So I just want to share this. We also need to have something that can save us from the helplessness that we can experience in this world. What is it that we so desire to have that can save us from the helplessness of this world? Like I quickly went through the story of Noah, because when Noah was building the ark, I'm sure he could have people to call him to say, oh, let's do this. But the mission, greater mission that he had, did not allow him to indulge in things aside from the core that he had. When he was done with his mission, he became vulnerable, reached a point of helplessness, drank wine, and made even the son to be a victim of his own helplessness. Let me just wind up this message by saying, in this world that we are living in, we can reach a point of helplessness, but our help is in relying on God to save us from our helplessness. For on our own, we cannot save ourselves. You'll find out that in the context of 2 Kings chapter 3, verse 9, Elisha eventually performed a miracle, and the entire nation of Edom was defeated. Actually, there was water that surfaced without anyone, without even raining, but there was water that made the enemy to be defeated. So I can just end by saying, whenever we reach a point of hopelessness, helplessness in this world, let us know that we have a God who can perform a miracle and save us from the situation that we are in. It is no longer by merit that we can save ourselves, but we will need a deity to save us. So we need a greater power to save us from the helplessness that we can experience. I see it's already 8 o'clock, but I can just maybe open for one or two people who can have questions so that I can attend to them. Then I'll leave over to the chair to close.